to patronize local investors for economic development. Minister of Housing and Urban Development and EFCC Chairman inspects confiscated 753 units housing estate previously owned by Godwin Emefiele. On the foreign scene, Cyril Ramaphosa meets Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. amid tensions over Washington's resettlement of Afrikaners. Good evening. This is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. I am Timitope Ajijola Oluwaola. The Registrar of the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, Ishak Oloyede, has dismissed claims of conspiracy against a part of the country following the technical glitch recorded in the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. The technical glitch affected the 5 states of the Southeast Zone and Lagos, with many alleging that the board deliberately compromised results of the Southeast candidates. But at a meeting was the management of the board ahead of the release of results after a scheduled UTME examination on Wednesday. Professor Oloyede denied the allegation. He added that the death of a candidate as a result of the examination is regrettable, as the meeting observed a minute's silence in honor of the dead candidate. Professor Oloyede insisted there was no deliberate attempt to undermine students from the Southeast, as every candidate is Nigerian and has equal opportunities. His denial follows calls from some quarters, especially lawmakers from the Southeast Zone, for his resignation over the technical glitch that affected over 300,000 students. Meanwhile, Jamb has announced a fresh round of mop-up examinations to accommodate the over 5.6% of candidates who missed the just concluded 2025 UTME.
No conspiracy theory is relevant in this case. There is nothing to say North, South, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa. Something happened, but people have been doing something well for years, and something just went wrong. I would not throw them under the bus. No. No. And I say it clearly that those who want to take advantage of that, they are just deceiving themselves.
Weakness.
On the day that that thing happened, the day of the press conference, I was under intense pressure. The unfortunate case of a lady who was said to have committed suicide was painful for any parent, any normal parent, that, oh, somebody had committed a suicide. Giving the false impression that so many things are happening to these innocent children. One is bad enough. One is bad enough. We had also taken decision immediately that all those who miss that examination for whatever reason, the 5-point-something% that, or 6% that miss the examination, we will, during mop-up, you know, we normally do annual mop-up throughout the country for those for one reason or the other. So we will package them with the mop-up. And it is for that reason we have also decided that even those who missed the earlier initial exam, who are absent, we will extend this opportunity to them to also receive.
President of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has advised the federal and state governments to patronize local investors for economic development. He gave the advice at the Taraba International Investment Summit in Jalingo, which attracted investors from across Nigeria and beyond. The Africa's richest man said domestic investors are the ones who will attract foreign investors, as according to him, no foreign investors would come into a country where local businesses are not thriving. He further disclosed that the federal government benefits 52 kobo for every 1 naira he makes from his Dangote cement factory. Dangote commended Governor Abu Kefas for organizing the investment summit, which he noted would open Taraba up for investments.
And I want to thank all our political leaders that are here to also plead that, please, we are ready. We will not go anywhere and invest. This is home. We want to remain at home. We want to keep investing in Nigeria. We want to keep creating jobs. And nobody will take a dime to his grave. So if nobody will take a dime to his grave, what will give us the satisfaction of even being human beings is to make sure that we impact the lives of other people. Impacting lives of other people is by massively creating jobs. We'll keep creating jobs, jobs and jobs and jobs. Thank you.
The reason I love investment and I preach investment wherever I go to is that it has a lot of benefits. First, it helps to engage our young ones. I am a champion for our young ones, champion of African youth, Nigerian youth. I believe strongly, that employment is one sure way of empowering our young ones. Employment is a way of bringing dignity to everyone. In fact, I have often said that it's a betrayal of a generation for people to leave schools and not be able to find good jobs. So when we encourage investment, we're helping to create employment for our people. We're helping to economically empower our people. So this is commendable. Investment also helps to improve security. Where you have investment, people behave better. So we need to all encourage this, not just in Taraba, but in other states of the Federation. And then this investment in agriculture will also help us deal with the issue of food security. So that, as they say, hungry man is an angry man. Let's feed our country so that people will be happy and we'll have calmness and peace everywhere. But for us to do this, there are a few things we must also do. And since we have our political leaders, I want to say improving access to electricity is so critical in attracting and supporting investment in the country. Improving the security situation is also helps, and most importantly, ease of doing business. But the good thing is, I see.
Similarly, Vice President Kashim Shettima has paid tribute to Africa's richest man and founder of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, describing him as the greatest black man in the past 300 years. Dangote was on Tuesday named on Time magazine's inaugural Time 100 philanthropy list, recognizing the world's most influential individuals shaping the future of charitable giving. Shettima also commended the businessman for demonstrating patriotism by establishing the refinery.
And I want to sit on protocol and celebrate the greatest black man in the past 300 years, who single-handedly established the largest single-train refinery in the world, with a capacity to refine 650,000 barrels of oil per day. 67% of Nigeria's refining capacity, occupying 2,635 hectares, larger than Victoria Island, employing 135,000 Nigerians and train 900 engineers abroad.
In a similar development, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party at the 2023 general elections and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has had a stable and secure business environment that would only attract investments but also lead to economic growth. Atiku stated this while speaking at the Taraba International Investment Summit in Jalingo, the Taraba state capital, on Wednesday. He said Taraba's economy holds significant investment potential and could be optimized to reap the benefits was the provision of a stable and secure investment climate. Atiku identified agriculture, solid minerals, and tourism as strategic to the development of the state and urged the government to implement measures that will address investment risks and eliminate bottlenecks. He further explains that efficient institutions would make all the difference, improve the supply and quality of infrastructure, and hence are the backbone of a sustainable development.
Drive growth and achieve sustainable development. Building strategic partnerships between the state, private investors, local businesses and communities is critical in addressing resource gaps and unlocking the potential of the state to facilitate investments. As a private businessman myself, I recognize that investments, foreign and domestic, drive economic growth and development. Here are a few key benefits. First, private investments will help bridge the resource gaps through additional external resource flows and increase internally generated revenue. This is quite evident. Second, private investments will assist the state in leveraging and maximizing the economic potential of its agricultural, which is bountiful, industrial and solid mineral sectors, which Taraba is very well known for. This initiative aims to establish a foundation for a diversified economy and ensure inclusive growth. Third, through skills and technology transfers, private investments can lead to higher productivity and improve competitiveness in local enterprises. Fourth, additional resource flows. Taraba will be able to upgrade its social and economic infrastructure to support economic growth and human capital development. And fifth, investments in education and healthcare services will help develop the capacities and competencies of the state's human resources. Six, with additional resources, Taraba will better support the poor and vulnerable by empowering them, improving their access to basic services, and ensuring equitable distribution of resources to minimize poverty. The Taraba economy holds significant investment potential and can be optimized to reap these benefits.
Well, the Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammadu Saad Abubakar II, has asked the federal government to prioritize the completion of the Kashimbila Dam in Taraba State, stating that the project holds the key to resolving Nigeria's persistent electricity problems. Speaking on Wednesday at the inaugural Taravas Summit in Jalingo, the state capital, the Sultan praised Governor Abu Kefas for his commitment on improving security and creating an enabling environment for investment. But the Sultan expressed concern over the slow pace of work on the Kashimbila Dam and stressed the need for immediate and total completion. The monarch also noted that Taraba has become more secure and attractive to investors due to the governor's pragmatic leadership.
To fear Almighty God whenever you are doing things, because in the affairs of people, fear God, but in the affairs of God, fear nobody. And I think it's important for us to always bring such issues up as we have learned in the past. And I believe, as the last speaker said before me, I think, okay, it was Tony, no matter what you do, what you have to do, you cannot develop without power. I was asking the governor whether the Kashimbila Dam has been completed and is running. He said only about 30–40%. We need it 100%. I think we have to focus on that, because if that dam had been completed and generating power, a lot of problems we are having with power would have been history by now. But it took so many years for successive governments to really work on that. I think we must concentrate in that direction, complete the whole project, let it give power to everywhere, not only in Taraba, but all around the Northeast and in the country in general. So I'd like to thank you.
As far as the Department of State Services, DSS, has distanced itself from the controversial arrest of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, in Kenya, insisting its operations are limited strictly to Nigeria's territorial borders. This emerged during cross-examination of a prosecution witness with codename BBB, an intelligence officer from the DSS. The cross-examination of the prosecution witness resumed shortly after by Paul Erokoro, who conducted proceedings on behalf of the defense, responding to questions whether the DSS can be influenced by politicians or ministers. The witness stated that the agency is under the office of the National Security Advisor. He also clarified that the Attorney General does not teleguide the operations of the DSS. Asked about the mode of intelligence gathering by the DSS, the witness noted that the sources are many, including human, social media, among others. The witness further said owing to their mode of training, DSS operatives have the capacity to get information where necessary. The Borno State Governor, Babagana Zulum, has alleged that some Nigerian politicians and members of the armed forces are acting as informants and collaborators for Boko Haram insurgents. Zulum made the revelation on Wednesday during an interview on News Central's Breakfast Central, where he vowed that the state would strengthen its intelligence network and deal with saboteurs ruthlessly. Addressing the issue of surrendered insurgents, Zulum stated that while not all who surrendered have reformed fully, the overwhelming majority are contributing positively. The governor reaffirms the need for Nigeria to embrace both kinetic and non-kinetic strategies in tackling insurgency, noting that over 99% of repentant insurgents are no longer involved in terrorism. He stressed that military force alone would never bring about a total end to insurgency.
And then my few advices to the government of Nigeria and federal government is that, one, we should prioritize security. Because the nexus between peace and security, peace and development, peace, security and development need not to be overemphasized. While we are doing road construction, I agree. We are building homes, I agree. But most importantly, let us prioritize security. Let both Borno state governments, national and subnational, put together enough resources on ground so that we can procure equipment. The army doesn't have the necessary equipment on ground to fight the insurgents. And I want to also inform you that right now, the insurgents are using technology to fight the soldiers on ground. 2 days ago, I had a meeting with the Chief of Army Staff. The Chief of Army Staff said that he's looking for about 32 drones. And he will end the insurgency. He is right. Each drone is costing about $5.5 million. Why can't we put resources so that we shall buy these drones? Let us prioritize insecurity. And another issue that we shall look into is the issue of procurement of military equipment, both hardware and software. Let us remove contractocracy in the procurement of the military equipment. Let us deal directly from government to government so that we shall get value for money. Otherwise, most of the contractors, I'm not saying all, once you give them money, they will not even buy the equipment. And some of the monies are going into the torturous bureaucratic melting pots of the ministerial systems. If we want to do right, we can put heads together and this madness will come to an end within the next 6 months. But the right thing must be done. Federal government and state government must come together. We need to prioritize security, and then we need not to politicize insecurity, which is very important. The federal government has to listen to us. We shall offer our services and advice on how possibly best we can move forward. And most importantly, the procurement process has to be looked into in such a way that the federal government will procure equipment directly from government to government. While the forest guard shall be established immediately, we shall coalesce together and look for funding, both through the government and private sector. And inshallah, all these things.
In the meantime, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Dangiwa, and the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, jointly inspected a confiscated 753 units housing estate previously owned by former Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele. The estate, located in Abuja, was recovered by the EFCC and officially handed over to the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development in line with a directive from President Bola Tinubu. Speaking during the inspection on Wednesday, Dangiwa disclosed that the ministry would immediately commence technical assessments by conducting integrity tests on the buildings. He noted that upon successful evaluation, the housing units will be completed and made available for purchase by Nigerians through the Renewed Hope Housing Portal, where he said is already active. The Senate has raised alarm over the growing use of dangerous chemicals, particularly calcium carbide, by fruit vendors to artificially ripen fruits, resolving to amend existing laws to criminalize such practice, describing use of hazardous substances for fruit ripening as a major public health threat to consumers across the country. The lawmakers called for more investigation into the ugly practice. The move followed a motion sponsored by Senator Antonio Correa Ani, who called for urgent intervention from relevant regulatory agencies. The Senate subsequently resolved to mandate the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration, NAFDAC, and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to investigate the increasing prevalence of the harmful practice. Senator Ani noted that the use of toxic chemicals for fruit ripening has led to serious health concerns, including cancer, kidney failure, and other life-threatening illnesses, warning that continued exposure could have widespread consequences for public health.
Worried that nutritional experts and regulatory agencies such as NAFDAC, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, have warned against fruit ripening with calcium carbide, describing it as a harmful practice that endangers human lives. Also worried that calcium carbide contains impurities such as arsenic, lead particles, phosphorus, etc., that cause several health hazards such as cancer, heart, kidney, liver failures, neurological disorders, intestinal problems, skin damage, mouth ulcers, and so on, saddened that the practice of ripening fruits with dangerous chemicals are being on the increase among fruit sellers in Nigeria. Also saddened that many of these fruit sellers are ignorant of the health hazards posed by consumption of artificially ripened fruits, but driven by the incremental profit that made it much profit, as most customers prefer to patronize the artificially ripened fruits due to its enhanced cosmetic appearance, not knowing that they are buying poison. And also notes that the use of some of these chemicals have been banned in many countries of the world, but they are still being used indiscriminately in Nigeria. Accordingly, results to, number one, all NAFDAC, Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, and Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission to investigate the practice of chemical ripening of fruits in Nigeria. Number two, also urge NAFDAC, Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, as well as the FCCPC, to increase the level of awareness by continuous sensitization and public enlightenment on the hazardous implications of chemical ripening of fruits. Further urge NAFDAC and Nigerian Customs Service to ensure that imported fruits, especially apples, are not preserved with harmful chemicals. And finally,
following a motion on the need to address the non-payment of pension increment and withholding of approved palliative by the federal government, the House of Representatives has called for the immediate implementation of all approved pension increments. The House further urged the Federal Ministry of Finance to release all without palliative measures and ensure timely disbursement to alleviate the suffering of pensioners. Ibrahim Isiaka, who moved the motion, drew attention of the House to the approval in 2023 by President Bola Tinubu of a 25,000 naira wage award palliative and an additional 32,000 naira pension increase for federal pensioners. Meanwhile, after considering a separate motion, the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate operational issues related to driver's license issuance, revenue generation, and usage within the last 3 years. The motion, sponsored by Afam Ogene, highlighted the need to also clearly ascertain which public agency has the legal responsibility of designing, producing, and issuing a driver's license. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, Central Council of Ibadan Indigents in collaboration with Ibarapa Consultative Firm submits memorandum to National Assembly for the creation of Ibadan State. We'll bring you more of this when we return. Stay with us.